9 tips to stop sucking at property management. And bonus after that, I'm going to talk about how I scaled from 6 to 20 properties using a property manager from overseas in 1 year. Let's get into these tips. Tip number 1, ask them to explain their fees. By the way, I'm doing this in reverse coolness order. So tips number 8 and 9 are the unique ones that I do that most people forget for some reason. And I'm Rich Carey, and this is a Rich on Money podcast, episode 20. Number 1, ask them to explain their fees. When you're interviewing property managers and you're going to talk to several different ones and trying to find the best one, ask them to show you a fee sheet, right? Ask them to explain all their fees to you. This will probably be in some kind of document. This should definitely be in a property management agreement. It's almost like your lease with a property manager, and we'll get to that later. But you want to see your fees. What's the number 1 fee that everybody thinks about? Percentage of rents. 10% of rents is sort of a standard, maybe on the slightly high side. Now, if we're talking about Airbnbs and short-term, it can be a lot higher, 20, 25%. 10% is pretty standard. Sometimes people will give better prices for having more properties. Okay, cool, you have 10 properties for me, let's drop it down to 9. Okay, you have 20, drop it down to 8. Don't get too hung up on this. A good property manager is worth their weight in gold, and if they're charging 10 and they're awesome, that's a lot better than charging 7 and sucking. There's lots of other factors to consider, like the other fees. I like to know how they handle repairs. Ask them about it. Ask them about how much it's going to cost to get your property ready after another tenant moves out. What do you guys charge to repaint the typical, 3-bedroom, 2-bath? How much is it going to cost? How much are normal repairs going to cost? HVAC goes out, calling an HVAC guy. Plumber goes out, calling a plumber. How are you charged for this? Are you just having the bill passed along to you? Are they tacking on a certain percentage on top of it? You kind of want to get a sense of how hard they're going to work to keep your expenses down, because that is the most important thing about you making money, is the property manager wanting to keep your expenses down at least 80% as much as you would if you were doing it yourself. You can't expect 100% if it's not your property. On bigger jobs, are they going to get quotes, and how's that going to work? What about leasing a property? Somebody lives in your property for a year and they're just simply signing a new lease and living there for another year. Maybe the rent goes up, maybe it doesn't. Do they charge you for this? Some places might charge a month's rent just to write the lease again, half a month's rent. Do they charge a separate amount right at move-in the first time? Is that 1 month's rent or half a month's rent? I had a property manager that charged their flat 10%, but there was never any fee like this for moving people in. No leasing or releasing fee. Understand your fees. How do they charge late fees to tenants? Do you get a cut of that late fee? Do they charge an application fee to tenants? Get a list of the fees, hopefully all on one page. Keep them all together with the other companies you've thought about using. And let's move on to step number 2. Ask them their criteria. This is one of my favorite things. Anybody that knows me, Rich Carey, the Rich on Money podcast, knows that I love talking about criteria. My criteria are 3 times the rent as income, good prior rental reference, at least a 600 credit score. Maybe that's higher in your market. No bankruptcies, no felonies, no evictions, no exceptions. Ask them to explain how they handle criteria. What is their criteria for picking a tenant for you? What kind of a checklist is it? How do they feel about criteria that you would use? Ask them, talk to them about it. How strict are they about it? How do they check their criteria? What do they do to check income? And this is a very good one. How do they check if somebody's self-employed? How do they verify that income if they're self-employed? What process do they go through? How do they check a prior rental reference? And do they check other references? Is there a literal form they'll send to a former property manager or a landlord? Ask for that form. Are there questions that they'll ask about somebody's employment or their prior renting? Ask for those questions. Hey, a good property manager, they're going to answer all these questions for you. If they don't want to be helpful, they're going to suck. Another little bonus I want to say about picking a property manager. It can be a tough business. A property manager is a business, and it is easy for these businesses to need different types of leadership at different sizes. Some property managers, when they first start out and they're managing 20 to 100 properties the first year or two, they're on the ball on top of everything and awesome. A certain amount of years later, when they get to 300, 400, 500 properties, maybe more, and everything is bigger in their business, right? They need to hire more people. They need better systems. Some property management companies tend to start sucking as they scale and outgrow what they were used to in the past. It takes a different person and a different skill set to do well with a larger company. My personal opinion, when property managers get too large, it just doesn't get done anymore. The details get forgotten. Just my 2 cents. Not always the case. Number 3, ask how the eviction process will work, timelines and fees. Now, for one thing, maybe you don't know the eviction process, right? Maybe you haven't been a landlord yourself and haven't dealt with this. Let them teach it to you. And how good of a job do they do? How comfortable do they make you? Explaining the costs to you and the timeline. But ask them how it works. Explain, how late does my tenant have to be? What's the late fee they're charged? When do you guys send out some letter like an eviction notice? It's sometimes called a quit notice. What point of the month do you send that? When do you start the eviction process? What's the charge to me? Best case scenario in an eviction. What's the charge to me and time frame? Worst case scenario in an eviction. Like they fight and they just don't leave and you got to send the sheriffs to kick them out. This doesn't happen too much unless you have a crappy property manager with bad criteria and bad systems. Timeline and fees are important and you're going to learn something from it. And you're going to also see how hard they're willing to work to win your business. I like this next one, number 4, because I've had my problems with this one with my property managers. Ask to see the landlord report that they give you. They should give you some kind of a report every month. Here are your properties, right? Here's the rent we brought in. Here's the repairs we did. Hopefully, here's the receipts. Let them show you a sample or somebody else's version of this report. It'd be great to see one that had like 5 properties, 10 properties on it. How do they divide up the properties? How do they show the rents that came in? How do they show the maintenance that was done to those properties? Obviously, the example you want to see should show some maintenance. If it just shows rents coming in and nothing else, you're not going to see enough. Some things had to get repaired. Maybe one of the properties is being turned over, right, for the next tenant. How's that all listed on there? Is it itemized pretty well? I think it's kind of cool if they attach the receipt from the company that they used. I would ask for that, but they should attach the receipt, right? If they use some plumber, some HVAC, some carpet cleaner, just attach the receipt. And of course, can you see how you're being charged for that? Are they passing on the cost to you? Is there a markup? My company did something interesting. I'll talk about the property managers I used here for a long time in Montgomery. They marked up any work that was done, 10% for them, up to a 500 cap. This was helpful to them when they managed large renovation projects for me. I'll talk more about that later. The landlord report shouldn't be ugly and they should be willing to show it to you, or else that's a red flag. I love this one, number 5. It might be one of the most important ones, referrals. You're going to ask them for referrals and you're going to get referrals from local investors. Asking them for referrals. It's just pretty simple stuff. Talk to the property manager. How many investors do you manage for? Well, I hope they manage at least one, but hopefully it's some kind of number. Oh, a bunch, 10, 20, 50. Whatever number it is, cool. Can you let me talk to 2 of those investors, right? If they're not willing to let you talk to 2 investors, I consider this bad business and a red flag. But get these referrals, call those investors, talk to them, ask them about their experience with the company. Use the other things in this video to ask those questions, fees, criteria, all that. That's doing it through them. Another thing I like to do is you should have a local real estate investment association, some kind of monthly meeting, hopefully the most biggest one in your city, basic one, the one that most people attend, the one that's been standing there the longest. Okay, a lot of cities have a Facebook page for it, maybe a web page, monthly meetings, maybe there's little dues to pay. First of all, you want to attend these. If you're out of state, you want to join the Facebook group for this because that'll help you out even if a property manager is managing for you. It'll help you ask questions about your market and find other vendors and stuff like that. First of all, they'll help you pick a property manager. They'll usually tell you the best ones. Ask these groups. Give me a list of the best property managers. Can you rank them for me? Ask people in the group, right? Ask for it in a Facebook post. Go to the meetings. Bring it up in the group. Run around talking to investors and just ask them. Stand up and ask it. But get this. Maybe you should ask who not to use. See if they tell you that. That might help you cross a couple people off your list. Step number 6, I really like a lot. It comes from getting a referral from the property manager. It's called get a developed referral. What does a developed referral mean? It means that it's a referral that you weren't given by the property manager, but one that you developed yourself. In other words, the 2 people that they gave you as references, they got to handpick those people. But hopefully those people can also recommend other people that like using this property manager. Those are references that you developed. References are important in high stakes situations like picking a good property manager. It's very high stakes because it's your money. Another thing I always have to say about property managers, you got to pick a great one, but nobody cares about your properties as much as you do. No property manager ever will. So find the one that comes as close as possible. I'd like to shoot for 80% of what you care about. Number 7, online presence. Look at their webpage. Get information from it. Is it done well? Is it set up correctly? Does it look cool? Google reviews, Better Business Bureau. Look at all this. Do they have social media? All right. There are some people, even in their 50s, who do social media like podcasts and stuff. I feel sorry for those people, but they're out there. Social media is important. Another thing I want to add to this sort of like online presence, I'll throw this in here. It's going to have the phone number, right? I like to know how long it takes them to get back to you as somebody who's calling to find out information, right? You're calling to talk to a human being. So call the phone number. How long does it take them to answer? Do they ever answer if you call this phone number, or is it always a voicemail? If you left a voicemail, I'm an investor, I want to talk to you about listing with you guys. How long until they call you back? Also send an email too. How long till they write you back from that email? They might never write you back and they might never call you back. And that's also a bad sign. If it seems like someone always answers the phone when you call at one company and never does at the 2 or 3 others that you're trying to vet, I like the one that's answering the phone. Yeah, it's an additional cost for them. But, tenants need to be able to get somebody on the phone too to get problems taken care of and not just be put in an endless queue of an inability to get a human on the phone, which we all know what that feels like. So number 7 was online presence. Number 8, slightly controversial. I mean, I guess it'll be controversial. Act like a tenant. This takes a little bit of acting. I think it's important, right? You're going to do a little bit of sleuth work. If you're not ballsy enough to do this, find a friend to do this. Somebody call the company and pretend that they want to rent a property. Pretend that they're looking for a rental. See how long it takes them to get a human on the phone. See how long it takes them to get a call back. See how long it takes them to get an email returned. Now you can take this as far as you want. Maybe you just want to find out how long it takes to get somebody on the phone. And if they answer right away or if they call back in a few hours, great. But I've been known to take this further. I've been known to actually talk to the person. I'm looking for a property and see what they ask you. Well, yeah, I work here. I make this much. I kind of just lost my job. I'm trying to get back on my feet. Whatever you want to say, but just kind of see how you're treated, kind of see what you're asked, and kind of think like, okay, do I like the way that this company is handling a potential tenant? I sort of like going through this exercise of trying to contact them, maybe even talking to them if you're ballsy. I also like sending an email as a tenant. 9 is my last one and my favorite one of all. But I'm also giving a cool little story about how I use property managers to scale right after this tip. Number 9 is ask them how you can fire them if they suck. Oh, I love this one. A lot of property managers have something built into their property management agreements, which is basically like the contract that you sign with the property manager. They have this thing built in where they charge you money if you stop using them, right? Like if you use them for 6 months and you're just like, I'm done using you, then they'll charge you like a cancellation fee or some kind of penalty for not using them anymore after all the work they put into your property or however they look at that. I don't always like this because I like to ask, what happens if I'm using you and you suck as a property manager and I want to fire you? So first ask them what the fee is for canceling and then say, but what if you suck? Because some of them have unreasonable fees, 3 months or 6 months of rent or some crazy thing. It shouldn't be an end of the world fee to fire them if they suck. So you got to ask, where in the contract does it show how I cancel this contract with you if I don't want to work with you anymore? And then they'll show you what the fee is and how expensive it is. Look for it yourself. But what if you suck? And what if I want to fire you? Do you really think it's fair to pay a couple $1,000s to cancel them because they suck? So they'll have to answer that. Well, we're not going to suck. Well, we're the best. But what if you do? Okay, fine. If you fire us because we suck, then, I'm only going to charge $200. Well, whatever their answer is, make sure they change the contract so that it shows that exception in there. Ask me how I know I've had to fire more than one property manager because they sucked. Let me shoot through this whole spiel about how I scaled. So those of you that know me, Rich Carey, Rich on Money, for the longest time while I was in the military, I had 20 rental properties here in Montgomery, Alabama that were all paid off, and I had a property manager managing them for me. This is what I did basically from my 13th year in the military until my 19th when I moved back here and started to manage them myself. But I had a property manager that helped get me really from 1 property to 20 over the course of maybe 2.5 years. But properties 6 to 20, I was actually out of the country, and the property manager, by leveraging their help and others' help, I was able to find properties, get them renovated, and add them to my portfolio from overseas, from the other side of the world, and it went well. And I'm just going to kind of walk you through how I did that. I should say how we did that. I had a team, property manager being at the center of this team. This is kind of how it worked. One of the things that was important was, and I worked this out with my property manager, not every property manager can do this, because I first went from properties 1 to 6 here in Montgomery, Alabama with them. And I liked working with them. They liked working with me. I told them I was moving away. And I told them that I'd like to keep adding properties, but I didn't know how to do that without their help. The plan was that when there was a turnover, and they did this for the other clients, they did the make ready, getting it ready for the next person by handling, scheduling everything and overseeing it, then paying their own people an hourly wage and hiring some professionals to do work. And they did an upcharge of 10% on those professionals up to a cap of 500. So that cap is important, and you'll see why in a second. The plan was I was going to buy properties that needed to get fixed up, properties that might have been in bad shape, properties that needed things fixed, needed, to a certain degree, remodeled kitchen or remodeled bathrooms. I'm not talking about big, expensive, fancy remodel, but just like get things back in working order, get things nice, fix things up, right? I'm talking like paint the whole house, maybe redo the floors, right? Maybe all new fixtures, blinds. But in some cases, swapping out toilets, vanities, countertops if they were messed up. They're going to handle all that for me. That might cost a couple $1,000s. Whatever it ended up costing, they charged me a 10% fee. And of course, if I spend over $5,000, which sometimes happen with bigger rehabs with like roofs and HVAC and stuff like that. If I spent over $5,000, it was a 10% fee, but a $500 cap. So I could spend $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 on a rehab. They got their $500 fee for helping me manage that without it being out of control. That was a big part of this. And that was the main issue, but I'm going to kind of walk you through what I did. I'm a real estate agent myself. I had the same real estate agent help me find properties here in Montgomery, Alabama. All 20 of them she helped me find. I would send a real estate agent to go look at properties for me. And of course, I had pictures from the MLS. Real estate agent would take more pictures for me. I'd look at those pictures, ask the real estate agent what she thought of the property, and I'd ask the property manager what they thought of the property if I was serious about making an offer. Also asking what it would rent for once it was fixed up. So I had that information. So my property manager was involved in my search. Sometimes I wanted to buy a property and the property manager would say, well, I don't like this street. This street's sometimes a problem, or this area is a problem. Or they'd say, the stairs, like this thing's too low and people are going to hit their head when they go up the stairs, or I don't like the floor plan. Property manager would sometimes veto properties that I and my real estate agent wanted to buy. She was giving me good advice. So anyway, if the property manager and the realtor think it's a good deal, I make an offer. Offer gets accepted. Again, I don't live there. I've never seen it myself. I get an inspection, right? So the inspection gets done. I pay an inspector $500, maybe $400 to inspect the property. Next day, I get a report with tons of pictures in it about exactly what's wrong with this property. I don't live in Montgomery, Alabama, but I've got the MLS pictures. I've got my realtor there looking at it for me. I've got my property manager there looking at it for me. I've got an inspector there looking at it for me. And actually, later on in the process, I'm going to have an appraiser there looking at it for me. So I did this for properties 7 through 20 over about a little more than a year's time frame, just cranking this out, right? And had this great relationship with my property manager, kept them very busy, taking these properties, getting them rent ready when I was buying them as fixer-uppers, putting them into my portfolio. And I have most of them today. Today, the number went up to about 30-something. And that's how I did it. I hope that today's episode on property management was helpful. Please leave a comment for me. If you're digging this podcast, you're digging where you heard this, leave a comment for me. Hit the like. Help me out. I want to grow this podcast. I love doing this. It's so much fun. This is Rich Carey and the Rich and Money Podcast, episode 20, signing off.